Welcome to another episode of Soundtrack of Our Lives. I'm here with Andrew from AJB HR Consultancy. I'm trying to say that slowly so all the letters don't blend into one another. So you are a HR consultant specialist based in Woolston.
Yep.
So you just want to tell the world a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thanks. So very quickly, it's imaginative title because it's my initials, and my team run a fully outsourced bespoke HR consultancy based, as you say, in Woolston in Warwickshire, supporting small business owners with everything from contracts of employment right the way through to restructures and redundancies and everything in between.
Yeah, because it's a minefield of a sector, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it isn't something you can just wing at all. So having that capability as a small business to actually just reach out to someone, I said reach out, you know, I hate when people say that and it's annoying, I've just said it. But someone can get in touch with you and go, look, I don't know what I'm doing, please help me draw up my contract of employment or whatever it might be.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
As with every episode, what I always do is I'll put all of your sort of contact details, your website, all your socials and everything in your episode. So if anyone in Warwickshire or further beyond, it doesn't matter where they are,
no,
does it?
No, nationwide.
Nationwide. So if anyone does need HR assistance, they can get in touch with you there and you and your team can sort of talk them through or do whatever they need to do.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, so that's a bit about you and we'll just jump straight on to song number one then. And I can't imagine there's many people on the planet that don't know this song, to be fair, which is Prince, Purple Rain.
Yep.
And this is your first choice because, well, you actually surprised me because I know you're a massive music fan. I mean, you've been to so many live gigs and you're a real music aficionado. But you were the quickest person to reply with your choices of anybody yet.
Yeah,
which was very impressive. But you went, right, I've got to pick or I'll be here for weeks.
Yeah.
And what made you choose this as your top choice?
So I think out of the five of them, this was the easiest choice.
Yeah.
Prince for me is the greatest musical talent ever to walk the earth. Especially mid-80s Prince, you know, when he peaked, and there are so many Prince songs I could have had, but for me, Purple Rain is just epic. I am now in a place where, if pushed, you know, I would say Purple Rain is my favourite song of all time.
Yeah.
And watching him sing it at the Superbowl in Miami, you know, I've had the pleasure of seeing Prince, you know, half a dozen times, various different places, but watching on TV, I wasn't in Miami, watching Prince sing Purple Rain at the Superbowl in Miami, it is just absolute class. It's just, you know, it makes you shiver. It's the musical talent on the stage, and it's the way that as he starts singing, the heavens open and he actually just says, "Shall we make it rain a bit harder?" And he's just this guy on a guitar, and I could talk for hours about him. The remaining thing on my travel bucket list is to go to Paisley Park, which I will do, but he's just a different level for me.
I mean, Prince, I said to you before we started the episode, you know, I think Prince is absolutely phenomenal.
Yep.
That song in particular, when you say the name of an artist, and normally one song of theirs comes to mind first. That's probably it for me, for Prince. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I'd never seen that Super Bowl performance until you sent your song choices over, and I've looked and I've watched it a couple of times now actually, and it genuinely is a goosebumps moment watching it. And I mean, I've watched it on my phone again this morning, and I think you need to watch it on your TV. You need to watch it so it's big screen. You need to have the volume loud, and if you haven't seen it, just Google Prince Purple Rain Super Bowl, and it comes up as the top choice, and just watch it and enjoy it, because it is. You said that it's perfection, and it's hard to argue with that because it's that good. It's just incredible, and he is a a truly unique talent. The guy could play any musical instrument, an amazing voice. Definitely well worth. Once don't go now. Watch the rest of this, and then go off and watch that, because you will enjoy it definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
And then your second choice.
Yes.
Another legend.
Yes.
We've had another person on the show choose George Michael, but a different song. And you've chosen Somebody to Love from George Michael. I mean, but what's not to love about the guy?
Yeah.
So what made you choose this particular song?
So again, huge talent, sadly missed. You know that couple of year period, 16, 17, when we lost Prince and George Michael and Bowie. Everybody was all together. We lost so many brilliant musical people within a couple of years. But I remember, I'm old enough to remember Live Aid. And the 80s for me was the best generation, or the best decade musically. I remember watching Live Aid and everybody talking about Queen and them, being the standout act. And then of course Freddie Mercury died, and there was a Freddie Mercury tribute concert in the early 90s, and I watched it pretty much the entire way through, and it just went, and George Michael did Those Are the Days of Our Lives first with Lisa Stansfield as a duet, and that finished, and then he just stood up and went, "This song is one of my favourites, it's called Somebody to Love." And it just, very much like Prince, just from a sheer talent on stage, and just, you could watch over and over again. And obviously it's not his song, it's a Queen cover, but for me, George Michael at the Freddie Mercury concert was the equivalent of Queen at Live Aid. It was a standout performance for me, and the choir came on at the end. So I love George Michael, but yeah, I play that over and over again. I also think, as a separate note, and I wrote this down because I've thought this all the way through, that on that stage, on that day, when he'd got his red jacket and his t-shirt on, I think that's the coolest that a man's ever looked, ever.
Yeah.
And it was the whole thing, to be on stage looking that cool, to be that talented, and to just, blow. For me, he blew every other song away. Yeah. On that show.
He just set the bar. Yeah. Sometimes you get these sort of one-off performances.
Yeah.
I remember the concert. I wasn't there live, but I do remember seeing it on TV. The whole EP released about it, and that I bought, and the whole thing was brilliant. But yeah, that song and his voice and his talent was pretty special. You've mentioned here as well. That was the first person you ever saw live with your wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, as well.
Which was probably quite.
That was 2006 as well. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Now this one, your third choice, was one I hadn't heard of, so I had a little listen to it before you turned up.
Yep.
And there was a part of it that I recognised instantly.
Yep.
So the artist is Dream Academy.
Yep.
And your choice is Life in a Northern Town.
Yeah. So when I was putting this together, coming from Sheffield, being a proud Yorkshire boy, I needed to get my roots in somewhere. And I could have, there was a lot of obvious things. I could have gone, Human League or Pulp or anybody else that came from Sheffield. But I actually thought, do you know what? This kind of, just reminds me of not so much the lyrics in it particularly, or Salvation Army or anything along those lines. It's just the title. And it just, it's very important to me in terms of growing up, because I did grow up in a northern town. I grew up in Dronfield, which is between Sheffield and Chesterfield, and I've always been very proud of doing that and coming from the north. And the irony with this is, A, Dream Academy were a one-hit wonder, so this is their only song. B, it was actually sampled as a you know, a lot of stuff has been through the years. So there was a guy called Dario G that did a song called Sunshine, excuse me, and this is a sample at the back of it.
Yeah, so that's probably which is what I immediately spotted. So I know that particular bit from, I think it was 97, I think that came out. And I love that song as well. Well, I won't call it a song, it was a tune, wasn't it? It was a dance tune, Dario G. But yeah, and I've listened to this Dream Academy song, and it is a pretty good song actually. And I always think when people are watching this, click on the links in the video itself and have a listen to some of these songs if you've not heard them.
Yes.
It kind of expands your horizons a bit and taps into stuff that you wouldn't ever have come across. You just wouldn't ever have heard of these people.
Yes.
And so you grew up in this town just outside Sheffield.
Mm-hmm.
What's one of your fondest memories from kind of growing up around there?
And I know, you know, I know we talk about this a little bit later on because it's for one of the other choices. But you know, it was growing up was where I got into music. I you know, I lived in Drumfield, Sheffield, you know, that end of the world, up till about 15, 16 years ago, and then moved and came down this part of the world. So you know, I'd lived there. I mean, I was born in Yorkshire. I've been a Yorkshire boy for most of my life.
Yeah.
And you know, it was just a nice place to grow up. You know, I went through a really good school. I just loved growing up there.
And what led you away then? What took you to Warwickshire?
Relocated when I was, so before I was in HR, my background was financial services. So I was working in for HSBC in Sheffield, not surprisingly.
Yeah.
And took company for when through the ranks at HSBC, ended up being running becoming a department manager and taking company relocation to work out of the processing centre in Binley in Coventry. So that's kind of which is no longer there. So that's how I ended up moving from Sheffield. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's funny how jobs all there.
It is. My mum's still up there. My mum's still up there. My sister still lives up there.
Yeah.
So I'm back and forth quite often, and we're doing what I do. I've got quite a few northern clients as well, so that's great because I get to go, you know, back.
Tie that in with sort of client visits and trips back home. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is, Neil, always home. That's the thing. I always refer to it as home.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting. I saw someone post this the other day on LinkedIn. What do you consider home? Is it where you were born? Is it where you've lived for a certain period of time? And I think everyone has a slightly different slant on it. But I mean, I was born in Coventry, and it's always been where I consider home, even though I lived up in the northwest for some years at college and after college. But in my head, Coventry was always home.
Yes.
So I think, we all view it a bit differently, don't we? Okay, your fourth choice for today then, Andrew. You've gone with Coldplay.
Yeah.
And this, I've not heard this one actually. Viva la Vida.
Yes. So I've seen when you did. I've seen a couple of these before, and there was questions previously about best live song that you've ever seen, or discussions around, you know, that being one of the choices.
Yeah.
And I actually thought I was always going to put Coldplay in, but I actually thought that's, you know, that's my reason for it. So Denise, my wife Denise and me, we've seen Coldplay half a dozen times so far, but we've been on the current tour. We've been twice. We went to Wembley 2 years ago. We went to Gothenburg last year to see them, the same tour, and we're going to Budapest. I was going to say next year, this year.
Yeah.
So it'll be 3 times on the same tour, because it's that good a show. You know, I'm now standing. You said I've been, you know, fortunate enough to see a number of shows, and for me, Coldplay on the current tour is as good as it gets. in terms of anything I've seen. And Viva La Vida is my favourite Coldplay song, but it's also for me the highlight of this show, so that's kind of the reason why it's there.
Yeah, and that in itself, I mean, I know from seeing your posts on LinkedIn and Facebook and things that you go to a lot of live gigs and you see a lot of live acts, and it is a really big part of your life. So for you to say that that's the best live band you've ever seen is quite something, isn't it? Because you know, when you've seen so many, and I think Coldplay are an act that are, and I can't, what's the right word here? They're maybe wrongly stigmatised as someone who, you know, people kind of slate them a bit, and I've never personally understood that. I'm not I'm not a massive Coldplay fan or anything, but I think they've got some amazing songs. I like the guy's voice, I like their music videos, you watch the videos, and yet somehow people seem to just mock, you know, if you listen to Coldplay, you know what I'm talking about, and it's a bit weird. Yeah. It's a little bit like Phil Collins, I think it's the same.
Yes.
They get this kind of approach from people that, and I don't know what that's all about, because I think they're very talented.
But it's interesting you say that, because actually I don't listen to a lot of Coldplay. Particularly, you know, when I'm driving around and stuff, it's not anything I play a lot of, because, you know, they haven't released a lot of stuff recently and I know all of the songs. Yeah. It's just how good they are live. That's
really
the thing.
Good live.
Yeah.
And what? So you've seen them twice.
Yeah.
And then you're going again.
Yes.
And you mentioned here that the last time as well they had a live link to an Elton John show, his last ever show.
Yes.
In Stockholm, which is cool.
Yeah, so we were in, we went to see them in Gothenburg in either June or July last year. And because it was summer in Sweden, or the summer in Scandinavia, and there's not a lot of, you know, it stays light very late, so it was almost, I think, 10 o'clock by the time they came on, because it's such a visual show that actually you know, the lights and the armbands and everything play such a big part of it that it wouldn't work as well in daylight. So they have to wait for it to get at least dusk. So because it was Sweden, you know, they were coming on just before 10 o'clock, so that's when it started to go dark. So we were in Gothenburg, and Elton John was, you see, I could have had Elton John on this was the trouble with the list, I could have had Elton John on the list, and so then he was in the middle of his he was in the middle of his farewell Yellow Brick Road tour, and the night we saw Coldplay in Gothenburg, he was playing his final ever live show in Stockholm, so that's where the tour ended for 4, and they managed to do a link up with him, so they connected. Coldplay started to play, started to do Rocket Man, so they were playing Rocket Man initially, so there was the only time on that tour that they played Rocket Man that night for the first time, and then at the end of the song all the screens connected to Stockholm and it was just a live link, and Chris Martin started speaking and Elton John was like, oh yeah, I can hear you now, and there was genuine surprise on Elton John's face. I mean, that's quite an amazing thing to see, isn't it, especially as such a star as Elton John in his last ever show, and to capture a bit of that whilst you're at another gig is pretty special. Yeah, and the bit that was quite interesting just from a timing of the day point of view, because Elton John was in Stockholm but indoors, so it was still, you know, the time was the same because it's the same country, but he was nearly at the end of his show, and Coldplay were about 3 songs in, because Elton John was indoors, so it didn't matter.
He wasn't dictated to by the light outside as such.
So it was almost the end of Elton John's last ever show. So it was absolutely great. And then they're going again next year, so we're going with some friends, and when they announced the dates, Budapest is my favourite city in Europe, so it's just, you know, everything about it.
It was a no-brainer, wasn't it, to get And I'm just going to ask then, so before we get on to your last choice for your episodes, for your song, sorry, of all the gigs you've been to, where is like the best place? So not gig, although you might have just answered that, not the gig, but where's your favourite place you've ever been to worldwide to go and see a gig that you enjoyed?
I haven't been that many places overseas. I've done, obviously we did the stadium in Gothenburg, which was good, but it just was what it was.
Yeah.
And then the only other place we've ever been overseas to see anybody, we went to Vancouver to see the opening night of U2 on their Joshua Tree Tour 30th anniversary. And that again was, it was a stadium. It's just a stadium. For me, I am quite a big fan of the O2.
Yeah.
The bucket list venue, I'd like to go to Madison Square Garden in New York, just to see it. I'd like to go stadium wise. I'd like to go to the Hard Rock Stadium in Miami because the Hard Rock Cafe thing and all that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times when we go and see people and when we go to the O2, and this happened with Depeche Mode last month. If you've got an option of going to the O2 at the weekend or going locally during the week, we'll take London.
Yeah.
So Depeche Mode played, I think, Tuesday, Wednesday night in Birmingham, and then the O2 on Saturday, and we went to the Saturday night show. Probably, venue-wise, if I could, I'd go there a lot. I like the O2.
Yeah.
I think it's a good venue.
Oh, cool. Okay. I've never been actually, but it looks pretty impressive. Well, your last choice then. I'm just going to adjust the lighting here
because
because
come through, hasn't it?
The sun's come through. You'll have to excuse the video on this because it went pitch black earlier on George Michael's song, and now it's washed up. But I'll do what I can with it.
Okay.
So your last choice for today then is Billy Joel with Piano Man.
Yeah. So. We touched on this a little bit earlier. The reason that I have the love of music that I have is because of my dad. My dad was a drummer. So I grew up around drums and around him playing. And he had eight tracks on because that was the format at the time. So I grew up with typically Elton John, Stevie Wonder, and Billy Joel were typically the three people that were the most common played. And when Denise and me got married 2019, we got married over in Jamaica, and they had a piano bar in the evenings where basically there was just a guy playing songs on the piano and a lady singing alongside him, and they ended pretty much every night on Piano Man, because it was a piano bar. So I think with this one, there's a number of songs that could have gone there. There needed to be something in there as a nod to my dad, because that's where it came from.
Yeah.
But I just think the fact that the span of that song, because I was at 4, 5, 6 years old, I was growing up with that level of music, and then right up to the wedding, when it became then an important part of my life. Yeah. So that's why it's there.
Yeah. So it's more than, it's kind of traversed most of your life, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It was important to you as a kid, and like we've all done, we all sort of grow up listening to what our parents listened to. We were talking about this in an earlier episode I've done today, and you sat in the back of the car before seatbelts and you were sliding across the seats, and your parents listening to whether it's Billy Joel or I remember like Simon and Garfunkel.
Yes.
Was one my parents listened to a lot. Tina Turner, Billy Joel was one of them. Neil Diamond, Neil Sedaka, all these things, and they always take you back, don't they?
Yeah.
But then to have it that it's there, but then it's a real modern memory as well when you and your wife are in Jamaica, and it's just quite special, isn't it? It's a lifetime memory. And it is a great artist, Billy Joel. You know, a lot of very good songs. He's actually released something new, didn't he, last week? I heard on the radio.
Yes.
For the first time in however, I don't know, 20 years or something.
Yeah.
He actually released a new song.
And the thing with both Billy Joel and Stevie Wonder is they are the only people that I haven't seen live that I think I've got left to do.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And both of them have played British Summertime in Hyde Park over the last 2 or 3 years. Billy Joel played it last year when we were at Coldplay in Gothenburg, and Stevie Wonder played it a couple of years ago, and again we were at another show. So I'm kind of wondering, given their advancing years, whether I'm going to get there with the two of them. But yeah, they're the two that I haven't yet seen.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed if they're doing a show in the next year or two, hopefully you can get some tickets for it and get along and complete the set as it were.
Complete it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, well, no, that's it. That's your selections done. Thank you very much for coming on and sharing your stories.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
What a brilliant idea.
Yeah, and I will obviously let you know when your episode goes out. And once again, in case you missed it at the beginning, all of your details and your song choices, I will pop in the video for people to either get in touch with you or listen to your selections.
Excellent.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.